Wolong, meaning hidden dragon, is an appropriate name for a game that feels like it's basically come from nowhere to tear up the action RPG landscape. Which isn't to say it doesn't adhere to some of that framework. The legacy of Neo and Dark Souls is still present, but by removing the traditional constraints of the subgenre, Wolong takes soaring flight. It's a project born from Team Ninja's partnership with Koei, a developer and publisher well known for its games based around the Three Kingdoms era of Chinese history, most notably Dynasty Warriors. Wolong is set in that same era, blending historical fiction with the finely honed combat Team Ninja is known for, along with a dash of the fantastical and demonic. You are an unnamed warrior, a nobody who gets tangled up in monumental events. As if to drive home your nobody status, the very first boss might be the toughest in the entire game. You encounter this giant of a man before you have any major skills, spells or special weapons to call upon. He is only the first boss, but still he has to tough as nails phases. Beating him is the price of admission, a test to prove that you are ready to stand beside the heroes of Chinese legend. You must be this good to enter. Wolong seems to say being a nobody doesn't mean feeling like one. Right from the get-go, fights are a dizzying dance of spins, leaps and kicks that echoes the Wuxia cinematic tradition the game draws upon. Wolong's combat is a big change of pace from other Souls-likes and even Team Ninja's own Neo 2, where they emphasize searching for openings to land deadly strikes and making sure your own defenses don't falter. Wolong has a flow to it that is less back and forth and more constantly in motion. Dynasty Warriors. This is down to the lack of a Souls-like staple, stamina, which has been replaced by your spirit gauge. You are free to attack, block and dodge as much as you want when the gauge is positive, but you have got to time your moves right. Playing too defensively, spamming your most powerful attacks or getting blocked by your opponent reduces your spirit, which will leave you stunned when it's fully negative. Landing hits and pulling off successful deflects or parries, meanwhile, lets you regain spirit. The beauty of this is that, when you know what you are doing, nothing can hold you back. By creating openings with a gentle parry, dodging around attacks, and then laying into an enemy, you can get through fights without ever losing momentum. Even the toughest of bosses can die as easily as you can, provided you can keep pace with them. You can spend an hour learning and dying to a boss only for your successful attempt to last 60 seconds. Because it's all go, all the time. The moment a fight clicks with you, it feels like perfecting a choreographed scene. Because the game telegraphs attacks so clearly despite the ferocious speed of battles, I was able to follow the action and land my parries in a way that genre peers like Sekiro really had me struggling to do. As if that wasn't enough of an arsenal, you have spells and the ability to summon spirits to aid you. Spells are all tied to each of the game's 5 stats, each representing one of the 5 phases of Wuxing philosophy and embody related elements, fire, water, etc., but you are not a wizard. Spells aren't something you build around. You use them to complement your moves by adding lightning to a blade or planting a circle that slows enemies. The spirit summons are a special ability you can call upon after filling meter that lets you bring in a powerful entity to back you up with serious buffs. These summons are an ace up your sleeve to claw back a victory from the jaws of defeat. Stuff like this meant I never felt hopeless in Wolong. It might honestly be the peak of the action RPG arc. The time between encountering a seemingly unbeatable, the shortest loop of its kind I have played. Exhilarating feels inadequate as a description. Flying daggers. If it falters in its design, It's in Team Ninja's commitment to doling out heaps of randomly generated loot. I found it impossible to not long for Elden Ring's more bespoke item placement while organizing my inventory to clear out 2 dozen pairs of officer trousers. You'll still find special weapons with their own movesets and martial arts special attacks, offering you plenty of unique options. But there is a lot of minutiae to pore over, which can become tedious when you are comparing plus 10 health with 4.8% defense. Mastering combat is only part of the battle. You'll also need to become an avid explorer. Just don't go in expecting the vastness of Elden Ring. Wo Long has no open world, instead breaking itself up with a central hub, where you'll apply upgrades and get some side quests and distinct missions. Though there is certainly still a whole lot of game here. It isn't as cool to pick a level of a selection screen as it would be to roam from place to place. But it does mean you can experience a greater number of distinctive areas back to back. You'll be cutting your way across rickety rope bridges spanning deep chasms in one mission, and then find yourself on a snowy battlefield taking on a castle under siege in the next. There are labyrinths made out of shipwrecks and haunted bamboo forests. It's never as wildly fantastical as Dark Souls, but its grim battlefields are pleasingly intricate, full of shortcuts and secrets. Exploration is about more than taking in the sights, though, as every area is littered with not only battle flags that act as your checkpoints but also banners. Raising these increases your morale, buffing your stats and bringing the difficulty down. Your enemies all have a morale level, too, represented by a number that's visible the moment you bump into them. You can take them on there and then, or explore and give yourself a helping hand. You can even bring down enemy morale by taking out leaders or wizards. Dudes rock. Wo Long separates itself in this theming, emphasizing that everyone is part of a larger fight as well as fully fledged co-op for up to 3 players, handled through a menu for those who may dislike From Software's more esoteric approach and competitive invasions. You'll also amass a roster of NPC allies to be called upon when needed. You'll even level them up and get extra benefits from growing your bond with them. These comrades feel like companions in a way From Software's NPC summons never quite managed, as they stand by you each step of the way and share their story. Several missions make them mandatory, and I couldn't help but get attached. Zhao Yu, one of the first heroes to offer their assistance, was my main guy, my best pal. If you know the Three Kingdoms history, and especially Romans of the Three Kingdoms, be it through Dynasty Warriors or myriad other adaptations, their inclusion feels more meaningful. It's fun to see historical characters pop up like a cameo in an Avengers film, albeit with more important role to play. Despite the nods to history, Wo Long goes hard with the dark fantasy, shaking things up with demons diverting the natural course of history. Its monsters are closer to body horror abominations than they are creatures of myth, fitting given the game's producer, Masaki Yamagiwa, worked on Bloodborne, and the sound of buzzing insects feeding on the corpses of a battlefield genuinely disturbs. Wo Long sometimes feels like a mashup of genres, with romantic heroes caught up in a horror story. Both sides are balanced well, though, and while Wo Long never manages to conjure up a mythology or world as captivating as From Soft's finest, its mix of history, horror and fantasy is compelling. Not that tarnished. A shame then that Wo Long is undermined by some technical issues on PC. Frame rates generally held at 60 frames per second, there is no unlocked FPS option, but in spots there were some dire dips that risked bringing the game to a halt. In addition, there were a few visual bugs, like a strange glow that would take over the screen until I reloaded. I also encountered a couple of crashes, not something you really want when every inch of progress is hard-won. Tinkering with the settings can boost performance, but there is not much that can be done about the glitches without a patch. Apart from these technical blemishes, Wolong is an exceptionally accomplished evolution. It doesn't have the same variety as something like Elden Ring, but its focus on Wuxia-style martial arts puts it a cut above its peers. It's a game in which challenges feel exciting rather than punishing because the learning curve is so exquisite and mastery feels sublime. Teen Ninja has really managed to push the envelope, and lovers of wuxia cinema and action RPGs had best not miss this one. Technical issues aside, Wo Long is a master of its craft that future Souls-likes should study under.